Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to another Cars and Coffee on National Mustang Day. If you didn't know it's National Mustang Day, it's National Mustang Day, and isn't that handy that it falls on a Saturday this year? We'll be talking about that here in a little bit. Let's see, we've got a lot of things to talk about today, some really cool stuff. Going down the list, we've got, I'm Kenny Brown, by the way, and for the next hour or so, we're going to be talking about things that you want to know about. We've got some good questions that kind of like will kind of set the stage for what I'm going to talk about, is what you want to learn about. I think I got a whole page of questions today. Usually I got like 3 or tops 4, where I got a whole page today. We'll get to that in a minute. But again, 57 years of Mustang. So National Mustang Day. And out of those 57 years, I've been involved with Mustangs for 35 years. And I brought in a little bit of memorabilia just to kind of go through and share with you. And if you didn't notice the art, that's a poster from the '86 Celine season when we won the 24 Hours of Canada with our backup car. And that was what kicked off my long career with Mustangs. And in 1987, we kind of came back with a vengeance with really great cars. We engineered them over the winter, and we walked away with 4 national championships in SECA Pro Endurance Racing. So that's how I got started in Mustangs. So before I even did any street cars, I probably had logged maybe 100,000 miles in testing and racing. We were running 3 cars and a couple of trucks. So that's a lot of race miles. And in those race miles, I learned quite a bit, which I've carried on with me. And that's the DNA from the suspensions we did in '87 is the core of the advanced geometry suspension systems that we have today. The current one is 4.0 for the S197, and the newest S197 is 4.5 with the new rear suspension. But we'll get into that a little bit later on. I think we're also going to talk about, there were some questions about CHROMOLY. Why didn't I use CHROMOLY for suspension pieces? And what we're doing, we've got a little clip from Art Butler, who is one of our Speed Therapy Academy alumni. And he has a lot of experience in metallurgy. He grew up with it all his life. So he's going to give us just a little overview of CHROMOLY and why you don't use it in suspension pieces. Let's see what else we're going to talk about. Speed Therapy Academy. We're so busy, we had to put it off a week. So Speed Therapy Academy starts April 20th. 27th. Okay, you didn't update my sheet. Okay. Starts the 27th. And if you haven't signed up, please get signed up. This is a tremendous opportunity for you to just dramatically increase your knowledge. You're going to come away with just incredible knowledge on cars, setting up cars, driving cars, adjusting cars. It's well worth the time and the effort. It's a really good investment in yourself. Let's see what else. Another little thing on JRZs, which also I'm going to use to tie into one of the questions. And of course, the questions. And if you've got questions, please send your questions in. You can send your questions in live, and I will do the best I can to answer them afterwards. If I can't answer them, I will. But if I can't answer them, you're not going to get any BS from me. I'll tell you what I know, and I've got engineering brain, so the whole BS thing doesn't compute. So I think what we'll do, we'll start with some questions, and then we'll move into memorabilia. So this is there's quite a bit of chatter about the MT82 transmission, and the question is, this is from Benjamin. I have a 2017 GT, and people are always ragging on the 6-speed MT82 transmission. My question is, how reliable would an MT82 be on track versus a T56 with a track-focused S550? It's personal choice. In my 2012 GT4 RS track car, it only took about a couple of track events, and I pulled out the transmission that was the factory transmission and put in a T56. The big reason was how the factory, the S197, how it shifted. 5th gear was 1-to-1. And 4th gear was I forget what it was. But anyway, I typically only use 3rd and 4th gear on track. So the shifts from 4th to 5th, it was kind of always cross gate up, cross gate back. And it was it was kind of a pain. Never knew what gear I was in, so I threw that out and put the T56 in, which are totally indestructible. Not totally, but they're virtually indestructible, and they just shift like a dream. And third and fourth was just back and forth, no problem. Now I think on the 550s, I think fourth is I think 1-to-1. So I think that's just a straight back and forth shift, which makes it easy. As far as the reliability, it depends on a lot of things. And people talk about changing the oil. Yeah, that's always a good thing. But if your car's in warranty, I would only use whatever oil Ford recommends just in case. And then if you beat on it like anything else, if you beat on it, it's going to break. If you're good to it, it's going to last. But I would throw the factory shifter away. Again, we use the Barton shifters. And if you need a shifter, give us a call, and we'll get you fixed up, because it's a solid van. It's just click, 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 click. And it's like a toggle switch. It just feels really good when you shift. So as far as durability, it just depends on how you drive it. You beat on it, it's going to break. You take care of it, and don't be like drag racer, just hammering gears back and forth. Because you really don't need to do that in track driving. You don't need to really beat on your transmission. But if you want something that's going to be super durable and last forever, I mean, T56, they got like a 600-pound torque rating, something like that. And like I say, they shift really well. So now Paul wanted to know transmission choices. Well, it's for the S197 and the 550. The optional choice obviously would be the Tremec Magnum XL. I mean, that's the one that we use. There's a whole bunch of 6-speed Tremec transmissions, but the Magnum is the best, and that's one we always use. Now, going back to earlier cars, for the SN95, for like the Cobras on track, we use the T56. Magnum wasn't available back then, so it's I forget what the number was, but it's the one what you always want to do if you do the 6-speed from Tremec. You always want to get the one that has a 0.8 fifth gear, because that's a closer ratio, and I think it's like a 297 first gear. I think the 550s have something like a 415 first gear. It's like, why? But it's like you want that 0.8 fifth gear, because you got a 0.8 1-to-1 fourth, and I can't remember. Third is 134, 127, something like that. So, but you go back to the Windsor cars, the old Windsors, the Fox and 94, 95 SN95s. I think the best choice for that is Tremec but recently came out with a new updated version of the TKO 600. I think it's the TKX, maybe something like that. And it's actually got the shift mechanism of the T56, so it shifts like a dream. It's lighter than the T56 by quite a bit. It's more compact, so it fits in the tunnel a lot better. And you can get it with a 0.8 fifth gear. And and the T56 the sixth gear is like double overdrive, like a 0.6 or 0.7, depending on which one you get. But in the TX, it's like 0.8, and you got a 1-to-1 fourth. It's lighter, more compact. That's a great choice if you got a Windsor. Okay, next question. How do you set up caster and camber? Okay, real quickly, I went over this in the workshop, and we go really deeply into caster and camber in the academy in the geometry section. But the caster is whether if the strut is pointing straight up, it's 0. If it's leaning forward, that's negative caster. You don't want that at all. I mean, the car will just wander all over the place. What you want is the top of the strut to point backwards towards the firewall. That's positive caster. And in Mustangs, I put every ounce of caster in it'll take. I just put all the caster it'll take. It doesn't matter if it's not balanced side to side, irrelevant, just all the caster. You really need the caster for a number of things from a geometry standpoint. And again, we go over that in pretty big detail in the academy. As far as camber, that's like moving the strut in and out. And if the tire were straight up and down, that would be 0 camber. If the top tips inward to the car, that's negative camber. If the top tips outward, away from the car, that's positive caster. And that's the last thing you want. We always run negative caster. The alignment specs are on the Speed Therapy Society in the resource section. Is it resource or guide?
It's guide.
It's called Guide. In the Guide section, you can download it for the track. Typically, from what the base street alignment is for the track, we'll add like 1.5 degrees more negative on the hot side. If it's a clockwise track, that'd be the left side of the car, and then maybe 1 degree on the cool side. And then when we get to the track, then we'd adjust it based off the tire temperatures. And again, that leads me right into the next question. Tony, want to know about tire temperatures? Incredibly important. Tire temperatures are the key to a good day at the track. And again, we've gone over that a couple times. We've gone over it in the workshop. And the whole idea is the first thing I do is when I go to the track, the first session is work on tire pressures. And what we mean by that is that, we take the tire temperature, and you have to have a pointy thing. You have to have like a barometer that sticks into the rubber. A laser is not good, but you want to get into the rubber, see what the temperature is. And you take a reading and be about 1 inch from the outside, in the middle, and 1 inch from the inside. And the whole idea is to try to balance them across the face of the tire, because that means you're getting all the tire on the surface. And so, for example, if the outside of the tire is 100 degrees and the inside of the tire is 120, then you want the middle to be 110. You want to split the difference. And I don't make any suspension or any other kind of adjustment until I get the tire pressures right. That's really important. And once you get the tire pressures, then you can tell if you need more camber, less camber, and you can really get the car set up and go like crazy. So let's see, Omar, the importance of the right bolts hardware on your floating rotors. Can you reuse them when changing rotors? Do you lace the wiring for extra security? I think he's talking about safety wire. And I have bolts that are 10 years old, but new and never been bolted on. The plating is decaying and turning to dust. Should I use them or throw them away? I'll start at the end and throw them away. If you've had them that long and the surface is gone, it's compromised. Just throw them away. Rotor bolts are way too important to mess around. And let's see, these are like the rotor bolts we use for our bare race brakes, which are a little different than the regular rotors. Regular rotors are typically solid mounted, but with the race brakes, they're floaters. They float a little bit, and they've got these Belleville washers that kind of go into place. But we don't reuse. If we do reuse, if we're in a spot where we need to reuse, changing rotors, need to reuse these, we'll put a little drop of blue Loctite on there. Actually, we put blue Loctite on no matter what. But we typically will change. Won't reuse bolts more than once, and we'll throw them away and get new ones. So yeah, throw the ones that you have that are old, throw them away, get new ones. It's a good investment for yourself. Let's see. Okay, Christopher. Oh, I got my handy director giving me signs now. If you're just joining us, I'm Kenny Brown. This is Cars and Coffee on National Mustang Day, and we're simultaneous. See, here's a problem. She's left-handed. She writes left-handed. I have a right-handed brain, so we always have a conflict. So.
Okay, so we're simulcasting live on 3 different channels today.
Oh,
yeah, we are on.
That'd be TriCast.
Yeah, TriCast. Yeah, I guess it would be YouTube, the Kenny Brown Performance TV YouTube channel. We're also on the Speed Therapy Society Facebook group, and we're on the Kenny Brown Performance page. So wow. Yeah, so if you like what you're hearing, click the like button, subscribe, and if you're on YouTube, you can click the bell so you get reminders when it is.
There we go. I forgot all about that. So we're TriCasting. That's news to me. That's technology working. Technology may or may not be with us in a little bit when we play Art's little video. We tested it yesterday. We're perfect. Carrie ran through this morning, and just there was something funky about it. She thinks she has it fixed, but fingers crossed. You know how good we are with technology. So anyway, Hirschfer wants to know about bolts and about the TTY, what TTY mean. And again, he kept having wheel hub issues, and he said it turned out to be that the hub nut was backing out. and that was causing failure. He said the dealer torqued it, but I guess new nuts are over. Absolutely new nuts. If they loosen up once, get rid of them. Don't retorque them. Just get rid of them and get new ones, because they've stretched or they've done something. They're not going to give true torque value. Get rid of them and get new ones. And the TTY is torque to yield. And torque to yield is something that's come about in recent years. And what that means is it's the bolts, and this happens a lot on in engines like head bolts are the big one, the torque to yields. And what torque to yield means is like you'll torque a bolt to whatever pounds that it says, and then there'll be instructions to add like 90 degrees, 45 degrees, add extra turn. And what happens is that stretches the bolt to its maximum, and they actually will have better clamping force by doing that. But the other side of it is once you take that bolt off, it's actually already stretched to its maximum. You can't reuse them. You got to throw them away. So it's kind of interesting concept. Like torque to yield, they'll stretch a certain amount, and then they'll just stay there. They'll be more rigid. They'll do a better job holding the head gaskets down. So that's what torque to yield is. I think they've got them other places in the car. I mean, you have to. And I couldn't tell you off the top of my head where else they are, but torque to yield bolts you don't want to reuse. If you can replace them. I mean, if you have to reuse them, be sure to use Loctite. So that just because they've already stretched, get some Loctite on there to keep them from coming apart. Okay, here's one from Douglas. How about the dynamics of turbocharging, massive heat buildup, and torture of motor oil in the engines, yet that the engines endure? It's not free power, it comes at a cost. Well, I'm gonna take a little different position. If you've got massive heat buildup, you're not managing the heat in the engine. I mean, if you've got the right radiator, the right intercooler, the right oil cooler, your temperatures will run where they're supposed to, and there's really no additional torture on the motor from heat because you need to get the heat out. If you are running massive heat, you got to do something. You got to pull that heat out. You got to get rid of those BTUs. We've got a great radiator. You've heard me talk about before, the 3-core triple pass radiator, and it not only helps bring water temperatures down, it also helps bring oil temperature down. Joe Johnson, one of our Academy alumni, has a GT350, and he was concerned because he does a lot of track days. He was concerned because his oil temperature was going like a little north of 280, which is pretty hot. So I told him before we add an oil cooler, let's put a good radiator in and see what happens. And then if the oil temperature is still high, then we'll go to an oil cooler. He puts the triple pass radiator in, and his oil temperature hasn't gone above 260. And it took over 20 degrees out of the oil temperature, and it's as stable as can be. So, I mean, it's like if you've got turbocharging, if you're making more heat, you got a supercharger, you got a turbocharger, you have to increase the cooling capacity. And that's one thing that always gripes me, because you see these cars, like those dealers that are selling cars for a while, all they did was put a supercharger on and try to sell it for, at a cheap price and push it out the door. Well, I mean, you've just added a whole bunch of extra horsepower, a whole bunch of extra BTUs, and they're not doing anything to get rid of it. Anytime you supercharge a car or turbocharge a car, you have to increase cooling capacity. That's just, you have to do it. Okay, Donald, he has a 2013 V6. He says it's supposed to make 305. So I'd be happy to see 400. What's the easiest way for a family man on a budget to do that? $6,000 for a supercharger is almost as much as the car. LOL. Well, getting to 400 to be on a family man budget is probably impossible. I mean, the only way to get to 400, you have to get inside the top half of the motor, because that's where the horsepower is. Intake, cams, cylinder heads, exhaust. Now, what you can do to make it a lot spunkier, you can go to a cold air kit. Now, we have JLT cold air kits because I think they're the best. And a cold air kit and exhaust, headers and exhaust. And that's the most increase you can get without having to get into the motor. And, of course, get a tune with it. I'd skip the bigger throttle body. Unless you do more than just the throttle body, you're going to see very little gain from it. So I would, cold air kit, headers, exhaust, tune. I'm guessing you're going to pick up, it's somewhere between 20 and 40 horsepower is my guess. I've never done it. That's why I say I'm just guessing based on other cars. So that's the only way to do it on a family man's budget. Okay, it's National Mustang Day, so why don't I take a minute to go through a little bit of memorabilia of my experience with Mustangs. Oh, I forgot. This is because of National Mustang Day. As you know, we are very big supporters of Cruise for a Cause, and that is by Dan Neve, and it's a great thing. I mean, him and his wife raise a lot of money every year for cancer research and stuff. And today, because of National Mustang Day, what they're doing this year, because the amount of events are still limited, they're raffling off a brand new Hope Edition GT500. So I know everybody would like to get their hands on a new GT500. But anyway, if you buy a raffle ticket today only, it's a 2-for-1. So you buy 10 raffle tickets, you get 20. So the code that you need to use to get the 2-for-1 is NMD57. So we remember that National Mustang Day 57. So please help that cause. I'm sure we're going to post that up somewhere so you can click right through to it. And it's a great cause. They're great people. It's a great cause. We've been supporting them for a number of years. So, yeah, do it.
$50 to win a GT500.
Yeah. $50 to win a GT500 and get $100 worth of tickets. I mean, and it's a great cause. I think, let's see, who was asking about Camber? I'm going to tie Camber in, do a little JRZ thing, because I know you hear me talk about JRZs a lot, but just to give you, to kind of just make a better point. These are JRZs. These are for a V6 full-on track car, but because it's V6, I don't know if you can see the spring rates. It doesn't become very good. Anyway, I specifically chose 600 rate for this car. It's probably aggressive for a V6, but it's a track car and it's running sticky tires, and the car will be really fast. The more spring, you heard me talk about this before, the more spring you put into a Mustang, the faster it gets. Our 5-liter cars will run, our GT cars will run like a 650 front. This is a 600 V6. If it's too aggressive, then it's no big deal to just pop it off and drop in like a 550. So that's the beauty about coilovers, and the GRZs have plenty of valving to handle, just about any kind of spring you want to put on there. So that's kind of a special thing. And if you look at the top, those slots, I'll tell you just camber by sliding it in and out. In for negative camber, out for positive camber. So there's the slots. Also, you can see the little adjuster on the top of the JRZs, minus for soft, plus for firm. And you can slide the strut back and forth until you get the negative camber that you're looking for, or readjust it to positive camber. Oh, we're going to do our Butler. There was some questions a few weeks ago about why I don't use CHROMOLY for my suspension pieces. I can tell you in the aftermarket, CHROMOLY has more to do with marketing than function. A lot of people advertise all this CHROMOLY stuff. To me, it isn't worth the extra cost. First of all, the CHROMOLY costs more, and secondly, it all has to be TIG welded, so it's labor intensive. And it's like we're trying to keep our prices competitive. We always use, like for a round stock, we always use DOM because trust me, that's the best you can do. But why don't we play this little clip by Art, and we're going to keep our fingers crossed. He is an expert. So keep our fingers crossed this is going to work. Hey, everybody. It's me again. And we had a question on Cars and Coffee about using CHROMOLY for suspension pieces. And I said, I never use CHROMOLY, I only use DOM. And there's some really good reasons. You have to bear with us. And Art Butler is with me here, and he has a good background with working with CHROMOLY on chassis and suspensions. and he's going to refresh me on why I don't use chromoly on my suspension parts. So, Art, why don't you give us a little bit of your background and how you've come to know so much about chromoly?
Well, I started life out with a father that had a welding shop and an uncle that had a tool and die shop. And I went on through the tool and die, went to college, ended up teaching in a community college in manufacturing processes, and got really deep into metallurgy. And that helped me when I started building chassis. Of course, my dad built chassis because weld shops back then were the guys that every race driver looked for. And by working with different materials and stuff, I was looking for the perfect chassis material. I was and worked up through top alcohol dragster, and always wondered why nobody ever painted their frames until I got there. And we had a chromoly frame, and due to the flex in the car, every time it flexed, it work hardens the metal, and it can develop a crack from anywhere. You can't tell it until it's there, and if you're painted, you can't see it at all. And anytime metal flexes, like a 4140, it starts to work harden. That's the basis of the metal. It's made to work hard. And in a solid, non-moving part of the car, chromoly works fantastic. But in suspension pieces, if you don't have that flex in there, you got to have a certain amount of flex. Otherwise, you ever see the suspension snap off on the high dollar big racers? They're using chromoly, and the flex has created a crack and it'll break.
Oh, there. Now, you know what? I only use DOM in all my suspension pieces. DOM means drawn over mandrel, as opposed to the electric weld, which you see a little seam down it. DOM is pretty clean stuff, and I've never had any issues with DOM. And I'm sure, Art, you've never had any issues with DOM either.
No, in fact, I built my son's car out of a DOM, and he loves it.
Well, okay. Ah, there we go. Raise your energy level.
You're not supposed to read it out loud.
Apologize for the technical thing. Yesterday, that clip worked perfect. This morning, when Carrie did a run through, it started screwing up. The first time it was really bad. The second time wasn't so bad, and now it's kind of like back to bad again. So I have no explanation. Anyway, the moral of the story is, you don't use chromoly for suspension pieces. I don't. It's to me, it's not the right material for the application. Again, we shy away from it in our parts because it's expensive. So I really want to thank Art for his input. I was just messing with you. Okay, so I take care of chromoly. That's National Mustang Day. Okay, there we go. The 86 Saline Mustangs are where I got introduced to the Mustang world. I came out of pure race cars before that. Open wheel cars, Formula Ford, Formula Atlantic, Super Vs, and then also sports racers. Like sports 2000s. We ran a couple seasons sports 2000 in the 2000 Pro Series. Had a couple lap records and finished runner-up in the championship. So I mean that's where I was. And then before the swing program, I had the opportunity to spend a season living at Road America, okay, and running the Skip Barber shop. I was the shop manager, and then for the Midwest Racing Series, Skip Barber Racing Series, I was a crew chief. So that was pretty cool. Spending a year at Road America is not the worst job in the world, let me tell you. So anyway, from there, I got connected with Mustangs. A friend of mine was in California. I was actually building some cars for him at the time. He had a Ford. He was part ownership in a Ford dealership, and he saw an article about this Steve Saline guy in California, and he was there for a convention or something. And he stopped by and visited Steve, and I guess they talked for like an entire afternoon. The outcome of that is Steve had just gotten his cars homologated for the SCCA Pro Endurance Series. It's called the Escort Series back then. And that series actually has evolved. And today it's the World Challenge. But he got his cars homologated, and he wanted to go racing and needed help. So Dan sort of volunteered me. And we helped Steve with some money to build the first car. Went out to California. I brought my sidekick, Rex McCoplin, with me. The first car was built in Sacramento because the first race was Sears Point, and we had almost no time. I mean, Steve and I did the deal at Long Beach Grand Prix, and it was like a month until the first race. So the first car was built in Sacramento at Fred's shop, and we did Sears Point, and then a few weeks later was Portland, and we did so well that Steve and General Tire wanted to add a second car. So the car from there came back to my shop in Omaha. People didn't know I ran that whole program out of my shop in Omaha. And we built the second car in Omaha. And then we ran the 86 program. It was a challenge. The 86 cars were, the brakes were this big in the front, drum brakes in the back. It wasn't a very good race car. The rear roll center was up in the trunk. The front roll center was below ground and it didn't handle all that well. Over the winter, we did a bunch of engineering upgrades that made their way into the factory cars in 87, the production cars. And we had better brakes. We had 3-point strut tower brace that the SCCA made us take off after Road Atlanta in 86. And we just came out of the blocks just rocking. And, we ended up winning 4 national championships with those cars in 87. So that's kind of like, how I started my life with the Mustang world. So we went through, I just grabbed a few quick things. It seems like I have just buckets and buckets of SN95 stuff. But I thought a few things I had to clear the dust off of them from my basement. Here's one that, this is wrong one, Carrie. This is an article from, don't worry about it. You're not doing a thing. This is an article from, just turn them off. This is an article that Rick Titus wrote for, I forget what magazine it was, but it's called Dream Season. It's hard to hold this up. I can't look through it. It was a Dream Season. And it has all the drivers lined up there. Scott Pruitt, Steve, Cornell Jones, George Falmer, Pete Halsmer, Lisa Caceres. Eric, you can take that. That was a cool article. And this, I think, was our very first Fox article. And it was in Mustangs Illustrated. Now I'm getting this light in here. We should have tried this ahead of time. It's going to get dark. This was in Mustangs Illustrated. And the title of it was Rocket Ships Built to Order. And I don't know if you can see that good-looking guy next to the dyno.
Showing a good-looking girl.
The good-looking guy next to the dyno in there, that's me. I had a lot more hair back then. It was dark. Okay, probably see. Here's one. This is the FR 500. Many of you may have seen or know about. That was a project car that Ford Racing did at the time, and I was working with Ford at the time of the FR 500. It was actually like a Cobra that they put extended the wheelbase and put a double wishbone on the front, and it was an engineering exercise. It also introduced the FR 500 4-valve engine, which later became turned into the Daytona prototype engine. But that's where with doing a media event with the FR 500 down at Road Atlanta, they wanted to introduce the FR 500 to all the media, all the Mustang media and other media. So they had this great big event down at Road Atlanta. They had two FR 500s, and they had a Corvette and a Viper, so everybody could drive each of them and see what the comparison was. And the thing that came out of that for me is down at the other end, at the far end of the Road Atlanta, there's a double right-hander. The second right hand, every time I went around the corner, at a certain spot, the back of the car would get loose. And then coming up under the bridge, there wasn't any little kink back then. It was just straight, really fast under the bridge. The back of the car would do the same thing. And I went back and I ran all the IRS suspension through my geometry program and discovered that at a certain point of body roll, both rear tires, steered the wrong. If you're making a right-hand turn, both rear tires would steer the wrong way. And that's what made the car loose. So that's why in one of the very first things we do in our phase 1 kit for the IRS cars is a forward torque brace and aluminum diff bushings, which do two things. First of all, it fortifies the brace that comes in the factory, just cheap tubing. And so we put a very heavy duty brace, press the aluminum diff bushings, don't let the differential move around, and they sort of act like a heat sink. And along with that is our phase 1 of the rear steer, which we changed the pickup points slightly so that some of that steer goes away. And when we get like phase 4 of our IRS geometry upgrade, we actually move the pickup points even more, and we get rid of all the rear steer. So that's how I discovered the whole rear steer thing in a Mustang, and that's where bits and pieces. That's where the heads came from. For the heads we're using on Roy's car, the FR 500 prototype heads and magnesium intake manifold came out of that program. Okay, here's some other ones I came across. This is every October we used to partner with Mustang magazine and do a Ken of the Glen driving school, which was always a great time. We used to do a lot of driving schools. And here's another. This is by Evan Smith. We had Evan on about a month or so ago. Evan Smith is super well known in the Mustang world, as far as editorials. And the photos were by Jim Capisano, another great guy. This is going back to school. This is I think this looks like it may have been at Putnam. I'm not sure. Yeah, it could have been at Putnam. Anyway, this was another one of the big driving schools we used to have, and we used to get a lot of people at our driving schools. See what else we got. Oh, this is a good one. 0 to 150 to 0. This was a car and driver article that my Red Rocket is my 289 RS was in, and let's see. Before the 289 RS was our first, the GT320X was our kind of like our standard for the SN95s when it first came out. See, this is in '94, so this was still had Windsor motors in them then, and we would bump the horsepower up to 320. That's why we call it 320X. And then let's see. Okay, it's called Works Cars, only for a few. This is, what date was this? There's not a date on here anywhere. So I'm not really sure when this was done, but I'm pretty sure that's a 4.6 car. His wheels we used to use, I love those wheels. Too bad we can't get them in. I can't remember the name of the manufacturer, but those are really cool wheels. So we used to put big tires. We were the first people to put huge tires on Mustangs. And here we go. This is this is when we started doing with the Cobras, the 4-valve Cobras. Our first one was the C4, C for Cobra, and let's see, this Jim Capisano called the car explosive. Because it had our 3.0 suspension on it, and we did some, we kind of pumped everything up, and the car was just amazing to drive, and he really got off on that. And then the outcropping of that was the C4S. That's when we put a supercharger on it, and then they were, we got 425 horsepower back then, supercharged. Okay, it tells you just how far things have come. I mean, we're getting like 500, and the Coyote's naturally aspirated now. So this was actually by Jack Keebler. So this is a Motor Trend article from back then, and that's kind of like just a few things that I picked up in the basement that were easy to get to. We got a whole bunch more packed away, but I didn't want to take the time or deal with the dust. So yeah, there's a little bit of history with Mustangs. We did a lot of cars, and we did a lot of SN95s and 90s. We did so many supercharged Cobras that Vortex supercharger sale for Cobras more than doubled because everywhere you went in the magazines, and one of my supercharged cars, and everybody thought, well, Kenny's using Vortex superchargers, I will too. So that was kind of cool. But then getting back to the 289 RS. What would happen is the engines back then were pretty delicate, specifically the pistons. And what Ford did is they moved the ring lands all the way up to the very tippy top of the pistons. There's only like a little bitty space between the ring land and the top of the piston. That was for emissions, to make better emissions. The problem is all you need to do is get a little bit of bad gas. And remember, we didn't have really good tuning back then. I mean, there was no such thing as a tuner. We worked off of fuel pressure. If you got any little teeny bit of bad gas and you got a little bit of detonation, you'd burn a hole right in the top of the piston, and it was disaster from there. So what we would do is when people did that, we'd take them apart and we put forged rods and forged pistons, okay, and we overboard it to make it 289. I thought that was a good number. So that's how we ended up with a 289 RS. So we built a ton of those too. Okay, we've gotten through, I think we've gotten through just about everything. Got to go on the back page and see what I missed. Let's see, we had 3 pages today. That's, I guess, because we had one full page of questions. Oh, Academy, Speed Therapy Academy, April 27th. Right, April 27th. This, if you haven't heard about it, it's an amazing opportunity. We may have some of our alumni in the audience today. It's a 16 week immersion sessions, which means I'll take a subject and we'll just take a deep dive. We'll just really get into like shock theory, shock design, shock adjustment, geometry. We spent 2 weeks talking about suspension geometry. Aero is another one. We spent 2 weeks talking about aero and effect on cars. We go pretty much through the entire car. And it's like next Tuesday, 7 p.m. is the immersion session where we'll kind of take a deep dive into thing. And Thursdays, like every other Thursday, is a master class where we'll bring in one of the industry experts that I know to give a little talk about their area of expertise. And then our guys can ask questions because the Academy's done in Zoom. So it's like the Brady Bunch, everybody's there and everybody can talk. And also there's group coaching in that. It's pretty cool. And then the other things is all these sessions are recorded and they live in a resource area. And each week I also do like a PowerPoint, and that leaves in the resource area so they can actually download the PowerPoint and put it in there. What are they going to put it in? Their notebook, their Speed Therapy Academy notebook. That's what this is set up, is a whole bunch of dividers. So you can download stuff and put it in there. And then, of course, the video's there to go back and reference. We've had a couple guys say that that's the handiest thing because they'll go back and they'll watch something for a second time and go, how did I miss that? So, and that's a resource that lives there for a while, even after the end of the academy. Let's see what else do we do. There's the The Academy people get special pricing. They get discounts on Kenny Brown parts, and also all the discounts on Bear Brakes products. And on brake pads, their brake pads are bedded for free. You get free bedding on the brake pads. So I mean, there's so many perks. I don't know if I can remember. Oh, polo shirt. And in the video, Art actually had his Speed Therapy Academy polo shirt on. And at the end, you get this nifty certificate of completion for the Academy, which actually comes framed. I just kind of printed that off the computer. But, here we go with left-handed writing again. Okay, I mean, the biggest takeaway is I talked a lot about things, the what's, but in the Academy, you learn the how, the why, and how to use it. This is just a syllabus. Week one is, introduction, and again, we get into the performance platform and chassis and planning. Suspension geometry 1, suspension geometry 2, shocks and springs, brake tech, wheels and tires, tuning for tire data, hardware and plumbing, engine and drivetrain, aerodynamics 1, aerodynamics 2, safety equipment, vehicle preparation, track tuning 1, track tuning 2, and we go through a whole bunch of scenarios. And then driver coaching 1 and driver coaching 2, where actually people will send in their videos and we'll do like virtual driving coaching. So, I mean, it's 16 weeks just packed full of, you can see this is the syllabus. And you can see there's like every week is just tons of stuff. So if you haven't joined, please join. We'd love to have you. It's something that, I think one of the other big things that our last Academy group came away with is the community. They say it's almost like a fraternity, and everybody knows everybody else and becomes pretty close, and they stay really involved. I don't know if we have anybody out there, but none of our guys out there, but you can in comments you can kind of relay what your thoughts were, what you got in the Academy, because it's something that you heard me say this before that I really didn't want to do because it's so much work involved for me, but Carrie talked me into it, and once I got through it, once it's pretty cool. I was pretty happy that, I can share so much. It's like I take a cork out and just kind of start dumping my brain out. And you hear me talk about a lot of different things, but in the Academy, I really, really talk into, get into deep terms. And it doesn't matter if you're a total novice or an advanced person. It doesn't matter. There's something in there for everybody. And if you're a novice, it's especially important if you're a novice, because you can really, what you would learn in 16 weeks would be equivalent of learning on yourself in 10 years. Okay. And I'm not kidding about that. So, okay. I think with that, can we move into some questions?
Sure. Just one more thing. If you're on the on the fence or want to know a little bit more, just give us a phone call and we will see if it's right for you. So here we go for questions. First of all,
you know what? I forgot to finish first bolts.
Oh no!
Real quick, look, I'm sitting here. Bolts and hardware. Okay, for bolts, we talked about the torque yield. All we ever use are grade 8 bolts, and you can tell a grade 8 bolt. It's got all those little lines on there. That's a grade 8 bolt. The only grade 5 bolt we use, that's got 3 lines, is for the brake ducts, because there's no tension on it, there's no shear, it just kind of holds the brake duct in place. If there's no markings in there at all, throw it away. It's junk. You have to be careful too with some of the grade 5s. Now, if you switch over on the metric side, the equivalent of metric to grade 8 would be, you can see that is 10.9. And then the other, again, this is for the SM95 550 brake ducts. It's 8.8. So, and we only use SIE washers. SIE are small, USS is big. There are a few applications we use the bigger washers on, but 90% of what we do are with the SIE small washers. And then always lock nuts. I mean, lock nuts are super, super important because you don't want anything to loosen up. Okay.
Okay, so first of all, this isn't a question, but I'm pretty sure this is from Brian West because he lives in Clinton, Tennessee. Thought it was interesting. He saw his first Mustang at the New York World's Fair. That's
Here we
pretty
go,
cool, isn't it?
57 years ago.
Yeah. So he must have been a young tyke because I know he's not over 60. So that was pretty interesting, I thought.
He was probably just hanging on to his mother's apron strings. But it made such an impression, he remembered it forever.
Also, I want to mention Kobe Ward is at the Clinton Hill Climb in Clifton, Arizona today. It's the 21st annual. And I want to mention that a lot of people watch the replay, so hi replay watchers. And if you're at an event, just let us know.
Yeah,
I think it'd be kind of fun to
that's
know.
a good point, because Bridget was at the, what event was that, 2 weeks ago?
Something Tail of the Dragon, Mustang, something.
Anyway, the Mustang event down there. So if you're at an event, let us know. We'll mention it.
Bridget actually is not with us today because she is at another event that she's putting on at a dealership she has association with, and they are putting on a Mustang Day car show.
Mustang Day car show. Here we go. I'm sure there's a lot of those around the country today.
And then one more thing, Dan, Neve, if we can mention one more time, because this is such a great worthy cause. Mustang Day, he is giving away 2-for-1 raffles to his Hope Hope Edition GT 500. Do you want to add to that or not?
No, I think that it's please do. I mean, they're great people. They work really hard all year long. They typically will do just events all summer long and collect a lot of donations. And that all goes to cancer. I think it's over $500,000 they've raised, or more than that.
Yeah, more than that. They lately they've been raising about $100,000 a year, all by themselves.
Yep, just by themselves.
Well, with everybody else donating. But anyway, it's a worthy cause, and the code to get the 2-for-1 deal today is National Mustang Day 57. So it's NMD 57. It will be in the comments. Please donate, and it's a worthy.
And they also have what my granddaughter would call merch. They got merch. You can pick up some merch.
So visit cruise4acause.org. Okay, here's questions. Tim Allen, if I open my hood and simply adjust my caster all the way back, doesn't mess up my current tow settings?
Not a lot. It's always tow is the thing we always set last. We'll make all our caster camber, all those adjustments first, and then set tow. And typically at the track, we won't readjust tow when we do camber. But while you're tipping the top of the strut back, you're raising the tip of the arm on the spindle. I never really checked it, so I don't see it making a huge difference. But again, after we do our adjustments, we always set the tow last.
Okay, here's another. Is running a cooler thermostat like 170 degree a good idea on a street performance Mustang?
Yeah, if anything is performance oriented, getting the thermostat to kick off sooner is a good thing. We always run cooler thermostats in all our cars. So yeah, if it's available to you, go ahead.
And then Calvin Goring, yay, you donated. Awesome, Calvin. And then we have another question here. Would it be worth running your brake ducts on a street performance Mustang with Brembos if you don't want to cut holes in your lower grille?
Okay, would it be worth running your brake ducts in the street performance if you don't want to cut holes in your lower grille? I'm not sure.
He just wants to put the brake ducts on, not the hose.
Brake ducts on the car without the hoses?
Yeah.
I think you'd be better off with the whole idea is they're neck down so that the air can go straight in the eye of the rotor. If you have that plate on there without the hose to it, you're actually going to be restricting air into the rotor. So as much as I love to say a set of brake ducts, if you're not going to run the hoses, I would not run the brake ducts because you're blocking off some of the entrance air to the rotor, eye of the rotor.
Okay, and then let's see. We have a couple comments on the rate. Oh, is Ponies and the Smokies. A couple people told us. So sorry. Yeah, thank you. That's where Bridget was. I think there's a lot of people down there. They usually get a lot of cars. Here's a couple of comments on Academy. Chock full of goodness. Mustang comrades for life. And Joe Johnson added a comment to here. Really enjoy the speed theory, especially all the experts that Kenny brought in. I also sent in a video of a track event at Eagles Canyon, and Kenny critiqued my driving lines. It was a great help. So that's pretty interesting. Here's one from Rory. Do you or did you ever run under carriage cladding for aerodynamics and windows open or closed?
Okay, most driving events, it's mandatory that you drive with windows open. If you're looking for high speed, you want to close everything off. But there isn't anything in racing that I know of outside of NASCAR that you've got windows closed. Everything's always open. And as far as undercarriage, I mean, it just depends on how much aerodynamics you're working with. Making things under the car smooth is always a good idea. But then there's a couple of different principles. It's like there's one principle, you keep all the air out. And the other, what's currently, if you look on all like the prototypes and the GT3s, there's always a little raise in the front splitter just to let a little air in. And they keep the corner splitters. The corner is where you make most of your downforce. And that's why we always improve on the corners on cars. But they're letting air in because they've got smooth undercar, and then they're managing the air via the diffuser in the back to create downforce. So, I mean, it doesn't hurt. I mean, keeping anything under the car smooth, it doesn't hurt.
Okay, and this is just a conversation. If well, this is last call for any questions. So make sure put them up. But here's just a conversation. I don't know if you have a comment on this or not. So Tim Allen says, looks as if I need to source those clear ABS headlight covers for my 86 for better aero. I had the smoked covers back in the early days, but one somehow blew off a long time ago. And then here's a response to that. I have a set of new smoked ones. I could trace them out and you could cut them out. And then I think this is really, I want to run hoses just, this is regarding the brake ducts. I want to run hoses just mouth behind grill without cutting grill.
Oh yeah, you can do that. I mean, we do that quite a bit. Especially we just got a GT500 in that we're updating the suspension on, and we're putting brake ducts on it. And on the lower grill, it's it's on the old X's, but on the corners the X's are blocked in. So what we're going to do is we're going to cut those little in between the X's out, so it just look like the grill is normal, and then put the brake ducts behind that. Yeah, you can put the brake ducts behind it. You don't have to cut it out. You can put the brake ducts behind it. The closer you get to the center of the car, the higher the pressure and the better they're going to work. As soon as you get like beyond the lower opening for the fascia, the aero speed increases and the pressure drops, which you learned in the academy how that all works.
And that is it. If anybody has another question, you better get it in quick. Otherwise, we will see you next Saturday. And we are doing, Brad is compiling a number of our special guests that we had. Kenny's taking next Saturday off, but we're doing an encore presentation with a number. He's putting together a lot of the guests we had.
Huh.
So that would be really cool.
Well,
yeah.
This is news to me.
Yeah. I'm
always the last one to know. So now I know. Now you know. I found out same time you did. So if there's nothing else, please sign up for the Academy. I mean, it'd be well worth your while, and it's a great investment in yourself. And you're gonna come away with an incredible amount of knowledge that you can use, and that's the big thing. So, and if you have any questions, call in. Carrie will talk to you.
And there's also a link for a 15-minute consult if you want to.
Yeah, and there's a link for a 15-minute consult. And don't forget, if you do have tech questions that we don't get covered on Cars and Coffee, you can sign up for one of my 15-minute tech conferences. There should be a schedule somewhere. I mean, been doing quite a lot of them lately, really helping people out. So, well, I guess if there's nothing else, I think that's probably no more questions. I would say that's probably it for the day. And we're going to out. I wish it was sunnier and warmer, but it's not. But it's still not snowing, so I'm a happy guy. And we're going to go out and enjoy the day. So everybody else, enjoy your weekend.